Before we begin, thank you very much to Joseph S. for joining my Patreon campaign. Again, I always appreciate seeing your name pop back up. Thank you for doing it one more time. Thank you to everyone who has been pitching in and supporting the channel. The outpour of support has been huge. I will not get to use my normal intro for the entirety of the month. I am that far back on shoutouts again. Thank you very much for giving me a very generous problem. All right, so I give everyone a good, fair bit to watch Earthspark when new episodes drop before I start giving my opinions. It's striking while the iron's cold, but I really want you to go and see the series for yourself instead of getting all of your info from moi, or any other YouTuber for that matter. So I always wait, make sure everyone has a fair chance, and at this point, I think spoiler warnings are off. So we're going to be talking about some Earthspark episodes again, starting with episode 11, #Oops. Now, as the name suggests, we are focusing on the new Terran hashtag introduced in the previous Season 1, Part 1 cliffhanger episode. We're starting to learn a lot about how alt modes are perceived in this particular universe. And it's a different thing for different matter. Like, we get a lot of stories, and then it's going to be the course of 2 episodes. We're going to learn a lot about how alt modes were chosen by the entirety of the cast. But it basically comes down to trying to find something that suits you and who you are. And we get to see who the personality of these characters and these new Terrans are in these episodes. Hashtag is kind of a zoomer. It is young adult, teenager type attitude. We start the episode with her really preferring to just stay on her video game and not really do anything else. She kind of has to be coerced into leaving in order to actually find an alt mode, and she's the most lackadaisical about it. Nightshade seems disinterested, and Jawbreaker, you'll find out. Jawbreaker comes later, but for now we're focusing on hashtag. So yeah, Twitch kind of has to drag hashtag out into the real world to try and find some kind of alt mode for her. Trying to be the big sister of it, trying to be like the guiding hand who's already been through this, even though she took her alt mode accidentally. And they end up in a parking lot where the first thing, of course, they end up scanning is a ghost van. So hashtag's alt mode is officially a ghost van. And if you were not aware by now, this is going to be a hijinks episode. Which, after how heavy episodes 9 and 10 were, I think it's a good time to kind of bring some levity in and kind of come up with a sillier episode just to kind of like level the playing field a little bit. So naturally, the plot of this revolves around ghost agents finding hashtag in vehicle mode and driving her off instead of their own van, completely ignorant of the fact that it's in the wrong parking space and there's a second ghost van in the parking lot now. Probably shouldn't leave an unattended ghost van just lying around in the neighborhood Walmart's parking lot, but that's kind of what we did. So it's a weird one. So hashtag's alt mode has done a few things that is not typical of a Transformer. While she is in her alt mode, she can kind of dive deeper into what her alt mode can do, and it opens up this array of panels, and we can recognize some of these. There's a camera icon, a light icon, a house icon, a satellite, a lock, and a Wi-Fi signal. So we can kind of deduce what these mean, but for a Terran who literally just came online by this point no less than a few weeks ago, no more than a few weeks ago, I could actually imagine, yes, this is going to be a really confusing array. Aside from the fact we learn later on, like, this is not normal. Like, Transformers normally cannot deep dive into their alt mode systems to do all of this. So there's either something different about hashtag that makes her special in that this is some kind of like, almost like how like Trailbreaker had force fields in G1, or, Hound could project holograms, Mirage could turn invisible. It's almost like one of those like special powers that you don't see in Transformers as much anymore. And it just has to do with, it might be her alt mode too. There might be something particular about her alt mode that also causes it. We don't know. And that's kind of interesting. It gives her, it gives her a unique perspective, gives her a unique ability too. It will stay, like, once we actually see her in her robot mode, I do really like the design to her. Like, the high ponytail is a unique look for a Transformer. Like, I like this, like, sleek front helmet with the wide visor. It's a very unique look, and it's really cool when we are this far into Transformers, we can still create new aesthetics and new appearances for our characters. The purple and silver work well too. Purple Autobots are actually a really rare thing, so I'm actually glad to see another one coming out, especially in a major series like this. So, the Ghost Van, or hashtag, driven by the Ghost Agents, gets back into the Ghost headquarters, and chaos abounds as hashtag is trying to figure out her new control panel. Twitch is trying to come to her rescue, had to pull Bumblebee in for this one, which is a huge risk, taking Bumblebee into Ghost territory, which we still don't know why it's a big risk. Even, spoiler alert, we're not going to find out in this batch of episodes. But it does raise the stakes a lot, which is good, because otherwise this episode is very silly, watching hashtag basically screw up the entirety of the fort, of the base, to the point where there is an entire Decepticon outbreak. The Insecticons get loose, Hardtop gets loose, Soundwave gets loose, Skullcruncher gets loose, and a lot of them get loose. Now, this demonstrates a couple things. One, it demonstrates just how effective Ghost really is at their job. A lot more so than you would think for, like, the human companion pieces for this series. Because, yeah, like, aside from Skullcruncher making it a little bit too far outside and having to get stopped by our Autobots and Terran. Aside from that, they actually do a good job of containing the outbreak and getting all the Decepticons back under arrest. So, great. It also shows a lot of their lack of observational skills and maybe some general stupidity in that Bumblebee was running around in robot mode this whole time and nobody noticed. They're still looking for proof that Bumblebee is alive at this point. Keep that in mind. Now here he is roaming around this entire facility. No camera caught him. No one on staff caught him. Little odd. Just a little odd, right? It's something that I think it's a convenience of plot, but you know what? At least it's funny. Like I said, hijinks episode. The subplot, however, is focusing on it's focusing on Thrash trying to do the same, trying to be the big brother for Nightshade while they are kind of doing their own thing. So they're acting odd this entire episode, though when they find out about Fluffy Ears, that catches their attention a lot. But it still raises a weird thing. He's asking, they're asking about load-bearing timbers. Oddball stuff that you wouldn't expect a Transformer to ask about. So, as it turns out, this whole time it's been mentioned that out of the 3 new Terrans, Nightshade has been acting the oddest, as they're very disinterested in what's going on. They're not really concerned about finding an alt mode. It's just, it turns out they're occupied building this. So, with 5 Terrans instead of 2, we have far outgrown the barn. Somehow, Nightshade managed to build all of this, and load-bearing timbers nothing. Those are steel poles. Those are steel structures that they have somehow managed to build underneath the barn. And there's no explanation for how they got this, how they got all the material for it, how they got all the parts it takes for the computers and the mechanical arms, or how did they build skateboard ramps? Nothing's explained. Fluffy Ears got a spot here too. You can see it on the far right. So we got a new home base, which is cool. It's nice to see that the Terrans have a place of their own, and something that is somewhat Cybertronian, something that is somewhat familiar. So there is one extra added element to this episode we need to talk about, and that is Agent Croft, the director of Ghost, and Schloter's brother, as it turns out. So we've known from the beginning that there is something darker going on with Ghost, that there is definitely not who they seem to be. Obviously, something else is up. And this is where we kind of find out what that is. Croft comes across far darker, far more callous and cold. She does not have any care or concern for the Decepticons, living beings or not. She just, basically sees them as, experiment fodder. We open the episode with her literally zapping Skullcruncher, seemingly for fun. This is... She's the type that definitely strikes me as she's going to be the real antagonist at some point. I don't even feel like Megatron is going to shift and go back to his ways at this point. I feel like Croft is going to make herself the biggest antagonist of the series. She just comes across as supervillain. We'll keep an eye on her. We'll definitely keep an eye on her. But that is the first episode, #Oops, which is a solid episode, like I said. It's the nice bit of levity we needed after the heavy episode 9 and 10. And it does lead us to episode 12, which is Outtakes. So this one focuses on Jawbreaker. And it focuses on something interesting. Like, it continues the plot from the previous episode about trying to find your alt mode. But Jawbreaker is a little bit more interesting than this. So the episode begins with what you see. They're making a video. Like, Thrash is playing along with Mo while they create this little backyard movie, which inspires Jawbreaker to transform into the most dangerous, ferocious, and somewhat just frightening thing anyone could possibly turn into: a YouTuber. He becomes obsessed with this camera. So the idea behind the camera, he wants to go around and talk to all the different Transformers he has access to in order to find out how they got their alt modes, what made them choose what they transformed into, and kind of figure out for himself what he wants to become. Because he's having a hard time about it. He's looking at all these different vehicles. He's looking at everything from cars to Zamboni machines, and nothing really sparks any interest in him. Nothing seems like what he wants to be. Nothing feels right to him. So this episode kind of explores that. We find, and throughout these episodes, we found out a lot about alt modes and how they're chosen. Bumblebee liked his previous mode, but it got compromised, so he had to switch. Apparently, there's a lot of yellow sports cars out in the world that were Bumblebee at some point. We'll find that out later, but it's amusing to mention now. But the episode itself has a lot of interesting focuses. For starters, we do introduce Hashtag again, who gets way too into being the director for this. Hashtag is all about the directing, and this is where it becomes more like trying to make Hashtag's movie than finding Jawbreaker's alt mode, which does create some tension between them. Nothing major, nothing that doesn't get resolved. I mean, it's part of Jawbreaker's learning experience here. As well as Hashtag just trying to, not really knowing how to be a supportive sister yet. So it's an important thing. It's an important little lesson here, and to show that, just because they were born at the same time doesn't mean there isn't a little bit of conflict amongst the Terrans here. They have some things to work out, because they're still, young. At this point they are weeks old, even if they are Cybertronian and programmed to be quite intelligent at this point. There's one moment throughout all of... Okay, so what Hashtag and what Jawbreaker do with this camera are completely different. So I'm going to separate the two discussions. We're going to focus on just the Hashtag side of things, which does include a few interesting moments. For instance, a moment that any YouTuber can relate to. Realizing that the camera was off during the big thing that you set up, the really cool shot, the effects shot, the wire work or whatever it was. Just something that would be an overall pain to redo. And then you find out when you hit the button that you actually turn the camera on at the very end instead of turning it off. I've been here. I've been here more than once. I am in this shot and I don't like it. It's a great little moment. It's a great little moment, very relatable moment for a very particular type, and I am that type. What else? there's a few others, but the crux of this is the camera itself is special, and through the interviews they do pick up on a lot of things they don't want others to know about, like what a TCOG is. We actually get a mention of TCOGs, like a particular device inside Transformers that allows them to change shape. So that information is on the camera, which ends up in the hands of a still functional Mandroid bot. So this is the tension of the episode, and really doesn't take too long to resolve. Jawbreaker just kind of finds his own way to, even without an alt mode, keep up, pursue this thing, and eventually squash it flat, along with the camera. So it's a minor conflict episode, right? The only tension here is this thing might, if Mandroid's still alive, this might tell Mandroid something about Transformer physiology he should not know. So no, we don't get we don't get that, thankfully. It does get squashed, literally. The ending has a nice ending beat where they actually do make a full movie out of all the footage they recovered from the camera, but there's two particular moments that I really want to point out. One is Elita 1 does get to be kind of genuine and not like a fighter for a scene. It's a very real conversation with Jawbreaker about how important it is to be able to wait to choose an alt mode. You don't have to be in a hurry, much like in life. You don't have to be in a hurry. You'll find your way eventually. You'll feel what is right for you. And that's true of a Transformer as much as it is for a human being. So in this case, yeah, she explains it. Yeah, it took her a long time to find an alt mode that she actually felt comfortable in. It felt right. And she apparently waited a long, long time before scanning one, just because, yeah, nothing seemed to suit her. Nothing felt right, but eventually her spark said, yeah, this is the one. So it gives Jawbreaker permission to wait. And I correctly surmised in the previous episodes that the Jawbreaker storyline would be, it will take him a long time to find his alt mode. It will take him a long time to find out what he wants to be, which is a nice, relatable question for especially for kids watching. So that's gonna let him be okay with who he is for now, and we're gonna let that linger as a mystery. What is Jawbreaker going to transform into? It's going to be one of those lingering things. Like, if you're like me and you follow the Owl House, it's going to be like, what is Luz's Palisman? As we followed that for way too long. So there's little things like that keeps you interested in a character, even if they're just kind of there, right? The other thing that was big in this episode was actually interviewing Megatron. This will tell you where, you hear about the honesty of kids, where kids don't know what you are and aren't supposed to do. So young Terrans don't know. You just don't walk up to Megatron with the camera and go, can I interview you? But Jawbreaker did, and Megatron was actually okay with this. He actually sat down to talk to the young Terran. And we learned why he has an alt mode in the first place. So, in fiction, I'm always frustrated when Megatron transforms into an Earth vehicle because he doesn't need to. Like, there's very rare chance of Megatron actually blending in with humans or doing anything that would require him to blend in with humans. A Cybertronian mode is more versatile, potentially more destructive. It always felt like a disadvantage for him to voluntarily lose it, which we know is for the sake of making toys. Transformers Animated, he kind of had to piece himself together with Earth parts, so okay, he has an Earth mode. But, and then Prime had the right idea, because he never took an alt mode in Prime outside of his original. That's right. That's what Megatron should be. So, this one actually explains it. Megatron switched out to an Earth alt mode because he was trying to get Optimus Prime to trust him. Back when he first decided that Optimus's direction was right and what the Decepticons were doing was not the way, Megatron got Optimus to trust him by scanning an Earth alt mode and giving up his tactical advantage over him. Which is kind of a huge thing. It's very character-driven choice for starters. It really does tell you how committed Megatron is in this version of the show to actually cooperating with Optimus Prime. But it also just gives a really good explanation for why he's a VTOL. Like, it solves both, like, I love story beats. I love story beats that solve two problems at once. It's how Optimus and Megatron first started working together, and it's also why Megatron would take a weaker alt mode. It's great. It's perfect. I really love it. And also just kind of seeing Megatron as almost this father figure approach is different and interesting. And it's why I like seeing a good guy Megatron once in a while, because it lets you do something very, very different in Transformers when you do. And it's enjoyable. And it's one of the reasons why I'm still really enjoying this series. So that is my recap of 2 more episodes of Transformers Earthspark. We will be going in depth for the other episodes in 2-episode chunks just like this later on. But for now, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.